Hello and welcome to the Deerland Podcast. It's episode number 9, part 2. I'm your host, Mike Boley. I got the big butt killer himself coming from North Breck. It's Mr. Louis Zinn. How are you, Lou?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
Doing good. We've also got our resident land specialist, the one, the only, Tyler Sellens. How are you, Tyler?
I'm doing well, Mike.
Well, here we are at Boley Farms, our first time being here.
The deer paradise.
Well, something. It was a good place to be this year if you were a deer hunter, not so much if you were a deer. We've been off for a little while, kind of got through the holidays, and then we did have another episode for you, which was episode number 9, part 1. However, when Louie and I recorded it, we had some technical difficulties that we weren't aware of at the time. And in turn, everything was recorded on the laptop microphone. It's there, and we may release it as some special episode when we're known around the world for our Deerland podcast. But for the time being, we didn't feel like the quality of it met what we were hoping to get out to you guys. So it's still here. It's saved. It's edited, ready to drop, but another day. So
yeah, it was probably our best episode we ever recorded.
I think so. I mean, it was after a good day. You know,
it was squirrel. We were eating squirrel.
We were eating squirrel. Yeah, we had tried some squirrel from the Stephen Ranella, The Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook, which I just happen to have a copy of right here next to me. We tried a recipe out of that, and I got to say, it was quite good.
It's great.
So, but anyways, I mean, there wasn't anything huge on that episode. It was just more of us kind of hanging out and doing a little BSing, and
yeah.
So
the weather was good that weekend. I think we recorded, so we were outside doing some. I did a bunch of habitat stuff, hinge cutting, and you were out squirrel hunting. And
yeah,
we were having a good time.
We did. It was fun. Been out a couple times squirrel hunting. Myself and Mr. Sellens also went out.
We killed a few.
We did kill a few.
Some of us killed more than others.
It started kind of slow that day. You know, with the time I went before, I think I missed 3 shots, but only 1 squirrel got away. Something like that. I mean, I was on it that first day that I went out. And then when Tyler and I went out, we started a little slow, wasn't seeing a whole lot. We kind of split up, and, you know, you went one way, I went another way, and the squirrels started moving. We got on some, and I think I killed 3 squirrels in my first 4 shots, and then I think I killed 2 squirrels over my next, 7 shots, something like that. So I started off on a tear, and then ended kind of slow. But it was still fun. It was a good time.
Are you sure about that, Mike? Because I think you only came back with 2 squirrels that night.
No.
Oh, yeah, because I remember when it came time to clean the squirrels, you walked to the buggy and grabbed 2 squirrels and said, "These are mine," like I was going to have to clean the rest of them by myself.
Well, I don't remember.
I remember that.
It's been too long. All I know is I've got a gallon bag full of squirrel in the freezer right now.
Did you perfect how to skin them?
We had a pretty good system, actually.
I skinned them, threw them to Mike. Mike worked on gutting them, and then he'd kind of hold it, and we'd cut a little bit and get it done real quick, so it didn't take long.
I think we did 7 squirrels, and it probably took us 20 minutes probably to get through them. I mean, it went pretty quick, pretty smooth operation. Still kind of doing the tail skin method that we were
kind of getting the hang of it there towards the end.
It does. It just takes some time is all. So we'll have to get them fried up one of these days. I don't know if we'll hold them off till turkey camp possibly, maybe do them up for turkey camp or not. So other than that, you know, we did a little bit of deer hunting there towards the end of the season. Obviously, I was bucked out. Tyler still had a couple tags in his pocket, so he hunted my farm here a few times.
I've still got them in my pocket.
Still got them in his pocket, yeah. And I did go out on the last day. So the last weekend of bow season was just brutal weather. I mean, it was frigid. There was a bunch of snow out. And I had plans the whole weekend to sit on this exact couch we're sitting on and watch this exact 70-inch TV that's in front of us and do nothing the whole weekend. However, Tyler decided he needed a hunt, and he should. I mean, we had a bunch of snow.
I hunted Thursday.
Yep.
I saw 28.
Yep.
And then Friday,
I
didn't hunt here Friday. I hunted somewhere else.
Yep.
And then that Saturday, I twisted your arm to go.
Yeah. So
and I didn't notice the cold weather. I mean, I got in the blind and
once you get out there, it's fine.
Reached down, turned the heater on, and stripped some clothes off. I was doing good.
Except he's in the blind with the heater, and I'm in the blind that doesn't have a heater. Well, we've got 3 blinds out here now. One of them's actually his, and then 2 of mine. And the one that I have with the heater is not the one that I was hunting. But that wasn't really the point of it. The problem is it means I had to get dressed. I had to get all my stuff together. I mean, I wasn't ready to bow hunt. I mean, I had already said I'm done for the year, so I had to get all that stuff gathered up. And then I had to go outside where it's colder than a well digger's ass to go out and hunt for an antlerless deer. And I just didn't want to. And then we go out, and that first Saturday, we had literally had, 15, 16 inches of snow. It had been drifting. And by the time that I got to the blind, which is only, as the crow flies, maybe 200 yards from my house, I thought I was going to have the big one. I mean, it was brutal walking. So I get settled in the blind, and I didn't really need a heater because I let off enough body heat that it was unbelievable. And then, so we got out, didn't shoot that night.
We saw 41 that night.
Yeah, and I had a few I was hunting a small food plot. Well, where I killed that 160 at earlier in the year, and killed a doe in that same field. It's where I killed my 150 at. Nice little small plot. It's a half acre of food. It's in some brassicas this year. And I had a chance at one, and I let her get to 20 yards, 25 yards, somewhere in there, and I was just waiting on her to turn broadside on me. She was just coming straight at me. And then she started to kind of nose around, so I was getting ready. And she finally got broadside, and I had my bow up and just slowly pulled it back, quiet as all get out. And there was 7 deer right out in front of me, but she pegged it, and she bounded off like 25 yards and then stopped. And she just kind of looked around, and then she walked off, and the other deer like, I don't know what that was, and eventually filtered off. So didn't get anything tagged that night. So then Sunday rolls around, and I get a lecture from Tyler again about needing to go last day.
I didn't lecture you. Hey, I didn't twist your arm. I just said, if you want to go, I'm going. You enjoyed it, seeing all the deer.
Well,
I mean, it was. I told you that night when we came back here. I said, there's never been 41 deer on this farm ever.
No.
Until you put food on it.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show right there
what the power of food can do.
It is food. Food is key.
Food
is king, really.
And we'll get into more of that, as this podcast goes on. But so then the next day, for anybody that knows me or has seen photographs of me, I'm not the most svelte-figured man you've ever seen, and it doesn't come easy. I mean, I get it honest. So instead of trekking through knee-deep snow all the way to the blind, when you've got utility vehicles in the garage, I said, hey, why don't we hop on the old buggy, electric buggy, and ride it about halfway, at least get us through the yard and down through the timber a little ways, which was, for me, more than half my walk. He still had a little bit further to go, but so that's what we did. We drove the buggy down to the creek crossing, ditched it there, and went out and sat. And it was pretty slow where I was at, which I knew. I mean, I wasn't going to see dozens of deer in my location, but I knew I would see something. But I think early on even, I mean, would you bump a couple coming in? I know you bumped some turkeys, but
I bumped turkeys, but then I had some does come out, and they went back in, and I just had kind of deer in and out of that field all night. And it was, I think, between time the night was over, we'd had, I think, between you and I, like 32 out that night.
Something like that, yeah.
But I had 12 or 15 bucks come out. I had one buck that was already, it was the.
Oh yeah, he had just a unicorn side coming on one side.
Yeah, just like a beam. It was was a double main beam.
Yeah,
but he broke one side early, like September, I think.
Yeah, very
figured
early.
Out.
Yeah.
but he came out. He'd shed one side already. But the funny part of it is I'm like, I want to shoot a doe, just get a little more doe or deer meat, and because we made a bunch of summer sausage, and I really didn't have much left, and so I had this little group of does come in. They're right at 30 yards. I'm like, all right, and window open, and I get the bow, and I'm watching them, and they're all together. I'm like, all right, I got to split up here before I can shoot. And I'm just like seconds away from thinking, okay, I'm going to draw back and shoot. Heads go up, field clears.
Well, yeah.
And I'll let Mike finish the rest of it because now I know why it cleared.
So
afterwards.
literally, I mean, I don't know. I guess I haven't really measured the distance. We're probably 300 yards apart. Tyler's in my big field. They're separated by a little draw.
I bet we're not 200 yards apart.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 200 at that blind.
Was Mike taking a leak out the window?
No, that was the night before. So I get a message from Tyler the night before. He's like, shut your window. You're scaring all my deer off. Well, the reason my window was open is because I was getting ready to shoot a deer, attempt to shoot a deer. So that was the problem we were having is we were almost too close with the wind. I mean, one of us was going to be all right, and the other one, we were going to get the other one in trouble. But so then on Sunday, on this last day, this deer come out, and there was a few different ones, and I'm thankful that multiple classes of antlerless deer came out because, as I think we've talked about before, if you just have 3 antlerless deer out there that are all the same size, it can be tough to tell. Is that a yearling, a fawn, a mature doe? I mean, you wouldn't think it would be that hard to tell because when you get the different sizes next to each other, it's clear to see who is who. And that was the problem that I was running into on the night before. I had a couple button bucks that I believe were button bucks that I didn't shoot at that I could have. But this night it was clear. I had a couple mature does, couple fawns, and then a couple yearling bucks had come out. So I had my eye on this one doe that was clearly a mature doe. However, she just wasn't working in my way, and the fawns would come in and get pretty close, and so I had one window open, and then they were moving over to another, so then opened another window. Well, then the one I wanted moved over to a third window, so I ended up with all 3 windows open that were in front of me, not knowing what was going to happen. So at this point, I had made my mind up that this one particular doe is the one I was going to shoot. It was her or nothing. And I kept waiting on her, and obviously I'm wearing just like a long sleeve t-shirt, no gloves, no nothing, because it gets pretty warm. Even without a heater in these blinds, it gets pretty comfortable. And so, I mean, I had base layers on and then heavy pants, but like my upper body, I like to keep as little stuff as possible on it, just to shoot the bow.
Ozonics running or
no, I didn't have the Ozonics running. I'd actually already put the batteries into storage mode and had put that away. But I had a good enough wind that I wasn't worried about.
You ever put your batteries in storage mode?
I've never heard of that.
I didn't either.
You like drain them?
Yeah, there's a mode on the HR 300s anyways.
Oh,
I think you drain them and you charge them halfway.
No,
back up.
there's a button you actually push
discharge
on the 300. You discharge the battery, so run the batteries dead, and then put them in the charger. And once it starts charging, you hit this storage mode button, and then it'll take care of it. And then every 2 or 3 years, you're supposed to do it. I didn't do any of it the first year, and I had a battery go bad on me.
Mm-hmm.
Just wouldn't hold a charge. Luckily, Ozonics made it right and sent me a new battery. But so now I can get bad about remembering 3 months from now to do something, but at least at the beginning of the year, I try to get them put into storage mode right away. So no, I didn't have the Ozonics. So we're starting to lose daylight, legal light, I should say. We had plenty of light because it was a full moon. There was snow everywhere on the ground, clear sky. I mean, so you need to be watching your watch because if you weren't, you're liable to sit out there for an hour and a half after sunset and still be able to shoot. So I was watching the clock, and I think it was 5:34, if I remember right, was the end of legal shooting light that night.
It was about 5:32 when the deer cleared the field because I was watching that too. I'm like, all right, there's like 2 minutes left. Time to make it happen.
So here was my concern is I'm out here just to shoot a doe. I mean, and I guess more as it's the last day of season. I mean, it's going to be a long time before opening day rolls around or before we get back out again. And I'd had a great year, and just kind of to go out and reminisce and still shoot a doe. I mean, like Tyler said, we could use a little bit more meat for certain things. But it's getting there at the end of the night in his shooting light, and I'm trying to wait as long as I can too, because I'm thinking, what if he's got a shooter buck in front of him? I don't want to be the one to blow it. But when we get down to just a few minutes to go, I'm like, all right, it's every man for himself at this point. So I shot it at 2 minutes till, and it was kind of a rodeo inside the blind. The deer was at 35 yards, I think. Or 30 yards, 30 or 35. But anyways, I'm shooting a single pin sight, and I had the pin set at about 25 yards, which usually is good to 30. But I was wanting to drop it because the deer were real nervous. That night it was pretty calm. It wasn't super blowing, and I couldn't get the darn pin to move. And I had locked it into place so it wouldn't automatically or accidentally move. Then I couldn't remember which knob it was that moved it, and it's somewhat dark in the blind, and so I'm undoing all these knobs. I just couldn't get it. So finally I said, all right, I'm shooting a very fast bow.
Just aim a little high.
Just aim a touch high, but I wasn't going to aim too high because they were
going to drop.
Expected that she's going to drop. So, and sure enough, she gets broadside. We're pretty darn close to broadside anyhow, and I get drawn back, and as soon as I draw back, I mean, she knows something's up. She's looking right at me. And I didn't have a whole lot of time, so I buried it down on her and let the arrow go, and she took off. The other deer kind of stayed in the field at first, and then most of them ran off as well. And then one of her fawns was stuck in the field not knowing what the heck just happened. So I'm trying to look and see where she goes, and I thought I missed her low. And I'm shooting a lighted knock now, which, again, I'll never shoot at another deer with a bow and arrow that doesn't have a lighted knock on it as long as I live. So I'm watching the field, seeing what everyone's doing, and I kind of lost track of which one she was as she ran towards Tyler to the south. But then I seen the deer take off into the timber, high jumping, tail was up. So I thought, well, I wonder if that was her. So I waited a little while, and it was frigid that night. I think the actual temperature was 5. I don't know what the real feel was, but it was below 0. It was cold. So I just went ahead and packed up everything in the blind, kind of closed the blind up for the year, put all the curtains back up, and got everything ready to go, and then climbed down and went and found my arrow, which, again, this lighted knock, it was buried under a foot of snow. But the knock was light enough, it lit up the whole snow, so you knew exactly where your arrow was. Otherwise, I never would have found this arrow. I mean, not in a million years, until the spring probably. So I grabbed the arrow, pulled it out. Didn't look promising at all. I'm like, oh, shoot, must have missed. Well, then I'm trying to look closer inspection, so I got my phone out with a white light. I had a green headlamp on. And so I'm looking real close, and sure enough, I could see, some blood on it. And from the fletch, from the broadhead to the fletch, there was some blood and stuff on it, but a little bit of fat on it too. So I was a little concerned.
There's a fair amount of fat on that arrow.
Yeah, there was a decent amount of fat on
and
it,
some white hair,
and not covered in blood by any means. I mean, it's not your blood stained arrow, but I knew I had hit her. So I went ahead and walked back. I didn't realize it. Tyler had already gone back to the buggy and was sitting waiting on me. And so we went back to the garage and looked at the arrow again, got a better idea of what we were going to do, and hopped on the four-wheeler because the electric buggy wasn't doing so swell with the cold. The batteries weren't holding up like they should. So we got on the old four-wheeler, drove back to where I last seen her at in this big field. And as soon as we pull up, sure enough, there's blood staining there where she had stopped. And Tyler wasn't extremely convinced that we were going to find this deer, that it was,
based on the arrow.
Yeah.
The arrow was
not good.
I mean,
not good.
You start seeing fat on the arrow, it kind of makes you wonder.
And I guess we kind of went through the same thing with the mule deer buck too. Didn't think we were going to find that one either. And so we picked up the trail, and the blood started to get a little bit better. By the time we got 30 yards to the edge of the timber and got in the timber, I think you said, yeah, we're going to find this deer. I mean, there was blood everywhere.
Pretty easy to follow.
And we made it, I don't know, maybe 20 yards, and there she was. And she probably wasn't.
She was a solid 50 down through there. I thought
She was probably. I guess my
She
mind was getting
was-
ahead of myself. She wasn't very far from where we found the mule deer.
I was going to
buck.
say she was very close to
Yeah,
that.
yeah, 20 yards within 20 yards of where we found the mule deer buck in the same area. So, pretty good size. We got her drug out, and again, we didn't jinx ourselves, so we didn't even bring a knife. So I had to run back and get a knife. And
I was even a nice guy and gutted it.
he
for her.
did. He did. I will give you credit for that, which is probably a good thing because I'm not the most proficient at it. I'm getting better, and it was so frigidly cold that he had that thing done in no time. I mean, of course, normally I guess when you've helped me, it's been with antler deer that we're trying to save the cape, and it takes a little bit more time. And not with this one. We went to town, and wasn't no time we had her done, and drug her back to the house. And I had just recently, for Christmas, I had gotten an electric winch or an electric hoist to put in the garage for deer. And for some reason, I had decided to go ahead and just get it installed. We had a good, nice day out one day, so I just went out and hooked it up. And I had also gotten a digital scale, hanging digital scale to put on there. So I thought, well, let's just try this out, see what she is. I mean, just for shits and giggles, I guess. So we backed her up and hooked her up. 130 pounds on the nose, field dress. So
Wow, it's a big doe.
she was pretty good size for sure.
Best decision we made that night was cutting the deer up and getting it deboned and.
Before she froze.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean-
she'd still be froze.
Originally, that was the plan. We were just going to get her skinned, obviously, right away. We knew that would be a bad deal if we didn't, and we were just going to cut the back straps out, maybe. And we started doing it, and again, we had kind of a little system. I was at the table with a knife, and Tyler was cutting, throwing meat down, and I was cutting it up. And what we ended up doing was just deboning it all, throwing it into gallon-sized bags, and throwing it in the freezer. And we'll get to it later. But thankfully we did, because that's when Mother Nature just went sideways on us around here, and it hasn't really let up since until this past weekend.
Yeah.
It did warm up a little bit, but
-30, -40 wind chills.
yeah.
Been
So
brutal.
it was bad, but yeah. So we got that all done, and last deer of the year. I mean, I guess for me, it's I killed 4 deer this year, which is about not much more than the amount of deer I'd killed prior to that in my entire life. I mean, I just have never killed a lot of deer. I think I'd killed maybe 6 before that. So a very successful year to me. Very fun year, very rewarding year. I learned a lot. Got to share a lot of it with you two, and also with our listeners. Very excited about next year. What that may hold. The food plot system that we've got going on here has been fantastic. January 20th, which was the last day, that Sunday was the last day that we hunted, I still had a fair amount of beans in my bean plots, and I think I planted about 2 1/4, 2.5 acres of standing beans, and about, I don't know, 1 3/4, 1.5 acres of those still had a fair amount of beans left in them that day. Well, then we've got, this 1.5 2 foot of snow, whatever it was, over those 2 weeks, and frigid conditions where the snow never left and the temperatures were below zero forever. I went back out Saturday, I think it was, and you can't find a bean pod out there anywhere. They have cleaned it out.
It's probably the squirrels that cleaned you out on that.
Well, yeah.
I don't know. You've killed so many of them. I don't.
Squirrel
might
land
not
around
be.
here.
Yeah.
Might not be much around.
No, I think we still got a pretty healthy population of the squirrels.
Yep.
And the turkeys are still holding on. When I went out Saturday, I jumped up a pretty big flock of turkeys that were out there messing around. So
Yeah, we've had the type of temperatures that almost make it dangerous even for wildlife.
Yes.
I know they're pretty tough, but it's got to be a stressor on them.
and I was thinking about that too. That you add in the snow. I mean,
Right.
that
the
really
crusty snow.
Yeah, that really makes things more difficult for them to find browse, if anything.
A lot of ice and just stuff that would be hard to dig through.
Yep.
To find browse. It makes you wonder what they eat if you don't have corn and beans. They must just eat the trees and
the bark and whatever they can, and
Yeah.
try to rely on some of their fat reserves. And selfishly, part of me hoped that I could have held some food a little bit longer, maybe to find some more sheds in the area. But ultimately, the main reason for those food plots was not to go sit on top of them and kill a deer over them. I killed 4 deer this year.
Mm-hmm.
Only one of them was killed by any of those bean plots. So that wasn't the reason I put in all those beans. It was mainly for late season to help these deer when times get tough. So the food is pretty scarce right now, but we've gotten rid of our snow. So, the ground stuff's back, and it's amazing, even with the snow out there, how much they'll dig through there to get to the clover. They love that Whitetail Institute Imperial Whitetail Clover. So now it's back open. And then inside my standing beans, I have all the triticale and oats and wheat and stuff like that interseeded in them. So hopefully we can get some sunshine and some warm days and have some more green food for these guys to be eating on. So, but
shed season has began. It seems like it's early. They dropped early, and then I think most of them have shed already, which is
I'll tell you what I enjoyed a little bit of
75%, maybe 80.
I don't know if there's been that.
I don't
many.
think there's been that.
On my
many
farm,
shed.
there has. I
Really?
mean, I just checked cameras. It's in the last week, 5 to 10 days. I went out and found one side, and he shed his first side 2 weeks ago, and then the other side 5 days later. And
Did you find both sides then?
I just found the one side.
Okay.
I found the most recent side he dropped. I found like 2 days after he did it because I knew. I checked the camera, so I'm sure it's depending on which farm and that sort of thing. But I think most of them have dropped.
And here I just had, I don't know, 30 or 40 deer in the neighbor's field by the house that I was watching. And several bucks still holding.
Wow.
So I'm hoping to get permission to shed hunt one of the spots, but I usually don't have enough time to shed hunt more than the areas that I want to look at. So I don't know if I'll get to that or not. But
I just got a really cool, I'd send it to you guys, a really cool Spartan camera picture.
Oh, yeah.
Two bucks up on their hind legs hitting each other, and both of those bucks had shed. And then just previous to that picture, I think it was just a bachelor group of like 5 or 6 bucks that have been coming to the turnips every night. None of them have a horn on them, and all 5 or 6 of them are bucks. So,
wow.
Huh.
I mean, I'd like to think on my place 80% have dropped, but
And admittedly, I haven't.
still got to wait. I think it's to be safe. You still got to wait 2 or 3
Yeah,
weeks.
there may be that one. And, in this area, we've got a couple, decent ones that I'm wanting to hopefully have a chance to find their sheds too.
You don't want to go out there and bump them to somewhere else.
Well, and I guess honestly, looking back, if there's any deer that maybe even 2 or 3 years from now that I might shoot, I would rather find the shed myself, and I don't have to spend $100 and buy it from somebody else. So that's why I wouldn't mind.
You gave how much for that?
$100, and I think it's supposed to be.
Did you end up doing it?
Yeah, I did.
Swallowed your pride.
Yep, and I just thought that the animal deserved it. It is a beautiful shed. It's the
only thing that deserved it.
It's
I'd sell some of my sheds for $100.
I got some. I'll sell you for $100 if you're buying sheds.
It is a pristine shed. I
Yeah.
mean, it was a fresh drop, and he's so similar that year to what he was this year. And I can't. When was that shed? Was that 2 years ago? Would have been the 16 shed found in spring of 17.
Found spring of 17.
Yeah. So I did it. I wasn't going to, but. And I guess I need to be thankful that at least it was available for me to buy. I mean, some guys just wouldn't sell it. So to some people, yeah, I mean, I'm crazy for spending $100 on a shed. But I think 20, 30 years from now, it'll be nice to have it with the mount and to have the story. And, the shed was found just 150 yards that way.
You got both sides or just
one?
Okay.
Just the one side. So
cool.
But
At least you don't find them like this deer.
Yeah. Tyler's holding
Man, what a Missouri stud.
just a giant, massive, unbelievable massive deer. Heavy, figuratively and literally, a heavy rack that unfortunately also comes with a salvage tag included, courtesy of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. A tough go of it. I mean, you had a lot of history with this deer. This deer had a pretty interesting fall.
Did you name the deer?
Heavy.
Heavy.
Pretty original.
Fitting.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, the fall that this deer had, or even more of, what your history of him was?
It probably started, it really started last year when I got pictures of him. He was a 3-year-old. And it was one of those deer where you just saw him, and it's just like that first picture, like, man, that's a nice deer. But he's really going to be a stud in another year or two. It just because he had mass, a good frame to him, and you know, it was one of those. It was just I had a bunch of pictures of him last year, and about mid-November he just disappeared. And in my mind, I thought he's probably dead. Somebody killed him. Didn't know what happened. I didn't have any more pictures of him. And then last summer, got cameras out, and bam, he shows up right away. Only he had put on a lot more inches than what he was the year before. But I mean, I had just piles of daytime photos of this deer. I got some neighbors, friends that leased next to us, but you know, we kind of swapped back and forth, and I don't think they ever had. They may have at the end there. They may have had a couple pictures of him, but I don't think they ever had any pictures. But I just had, I mean, just I've got probably hundreds of pictures of this deer and a lot of daytime photos. And looking back, if I could have been hunting 1st of October, probably could have, you know, had an opportunity because I had some cameras right by stands and he was there, and Dad had him in front of right behind our shed there during bow season, 75 yards. The crossbow was too far, but. And then I gave Dad a hard time because opening morning of rifles.
Was this the deer?
This is the deer.
Okay.
So the deer during youth season got nicked on the back, and then November 9th he gets hit in the shoulder with a bow. Somebody else hit him in the shoulder, and then November 10th, I think I got my days straight. November 10th was rifle season.
Yep.
Opening morning, there's a camera that is probably 75 yards from the banks blind off to the west. And I get a picture of this deer that goes by it.
And we talked about this on a previous episode as well.
So I've given Dad a hard time about that because
Yes.
he was probably too focused looking somewhere else and the deer slipped behind him. But and that is the last picture I had of that deer. And then I found him dead right about the end of the year. And he had 2 wounds I knew of, and I found another one. Looked like somebody tried to shoot him head on with a rifle from kind of in the brisket area. He kind of laid that open. But I don't know if, you know, I'd heard a gunshot on Christmas Eve during muzzleloader season. I don't know if somebody hit him then because it was kind of that direction. Didn't find him, or, you know, what happened. But he could have just died of infection, could have died of anything. I don't know. But
And you said that he had been shot in the shoulder with a bow.
Correct.
And then your dad went back actually and got the shoulder from the carcass, correct?
Yeah, he did. And actually it was, you know, you always think a deer shot in the shoulder, is it going to live? Is it going to die? Is it going to make it? We don't know. You know, you just never know what's going to happen. But what I thought was really interesting was that broadhead was lodged into the shoulder blade, but the deer had just started to grow bone around the broadhead.
It'll calcify
just
around
calcifying around it. And that was
so the broadhead was still in the shoulder.
Broadhead and the insert still in the shoulder.
Wow. Okay.
So I thought it was really neat how it just started to just grow bone around that, like it was just going to encapsulate it and just heal itself.
You know, and I hear that they will do that. You know, that certain injuries like that they will.
And I think that just goes to show just how tough these animals are.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
If I got shot in the shoulder, I'd just probably lay down and cry, die. I don't know.
I mean,
call me a wimp, but I mean, it's you know, they get that and they just keep on going. And
so there was a picture floating around on the internet, I do believe, of a deer that had been shot like in no man's land, you know, below the spine, above the back strap, and there's just a hole, and you look and you just see a hole, and this deer's like eating a mineral lick or something. Yeah, so that just goes to show you just how resilient these animals are, just how much of survivors that they are. I mean, we were talking about, you know, animals surviving this winter and how rough it must be. I mean, but their everyday life is just nonstop survival. I mean, they have to be that way.
Yeah, but if they're wounded and they have to survive something like that, I think a lot of them succumb to the injury. Which
eventually, and that could have been what happened to this deer. I mean, you know, I think the gunshot wound during youth season, I mean, that was just literally a nick. I got a picture of him within a week later. You know, I think even a couple of days later, I had pictures of him, but you could see where it was already scabbed back over, and it was not a not a fatal or something that was going to be life-threatening by any means. But it could have been a combination between shot in the shoulder and hitting the brisket and infection. I mean, a number of things. But
because we did have a pretty decent December. The weather wasn't horrible. Actually, you
up until that point, no.
December weather had been pretty good. And I know it's easy for me to sit here and say because it wasn't a 180-inch deer that I was after, but at least you guys were able to, you know, find him. You've got
put some closure, I guess, to.
And you've got him. It's not a neighbor that found him. And
I had piles of, I've sat in the chair at home many nights here, just holding the rack and looking at it, just because of the mass on it.
It's just unbelievable. It's indescribable.
I mean, it's just he's probably got 50 inches of mass on him.
And I think is he close to 180? Do we already say that?
He's 180 and change.
Yeah, he's
and
awesome.
He's 50 inches of mass. So,
awesome. And we'll try to get some decent pictures of him, and we'll put them on the Instagram account, just so you guys can see, and maybe Tyler can get us some of him, on the hoof, and then.
I've got videos. I've got still photos. I mean, she gives me a hard time, and I'm like, man, this was the one deer I really was after, and just had a lot of history with him and tried to catch up to him because I thought I knew where he was living.
Sounds like you were the only one in the neighborhood that never did see him.
I never saw him. Dad saw him.
And for Missouri, if you put that many inches on, and you getting shot at by rifles, it's pretty impressive to get that big. If he's only 4.
I think he was a 4-year-old.
Wow.
But even if he's 5, I mean.
He's the heaviest 4-year-old I think I've ever seen.
That's just, it is. It's hard to put into words. And I hadn't seen it until tonight when Tyler got to the house. But he had told me, I mean, this is a massive, heavy deer. And it is. And then I picked it up. And you had told me that as well, that it's just heavy, literally heavy. Unbelievable. Just a beautiful, beautiful rack. And again, I'm thankful that you guys have it because I know that, you'll display them with pride and I know what it's like. I had the mule deer buck this year that I chased after, and granted, he weighed about a third of what this deer did and scored significantly less and had no mass compared to this thing. But outside of that, I know the feeling of, having a deer, going after him, having some history with him.
It's great to sit here and hold the deer or hold the antlers and look at him and, know the history I had with him, but I would have rather not found him this way. I'd have rather picked up some sheds and chased him next year, really. But, I mean, that's, the thrill of the hunt. But I guess that's Mother Nature.
But you still got a story, I mean, because here's another way to look at it. What if you had never seen this deer before, knew nothing about him, and you found it? Yeah, it'd be cool, but what's the story going to be 10 years from now? Oh, what's the story behind that deer? I don't know. Never seen before. Walked through the woods and there he was.
Yeah,
so at least you've still got the story. You can tell about him. He was still found on your farm. I mean, you didn't get to, take the meat or put your tag on it, but you were still able to get a tag put on him.
What I found neat was I could, different times of the year, the summer months, I knew where he was. He was always on one end of the farm and never on the other. And then the fall came, and then he kind of switched. He was in the middle of the farm and then to the east end of the farm, and he never was. I think there was twice that I know of he was back on the west end of the farm. But just goes to show you, I mean, deer kind of change their patterns and where they're at, summer versus fall. And
yep, and again, that's why a lot of guys, you'll notice your trail camera pictures. Early summer, just as the antlers are developing, they're in velvet, you're going to probably see bucks that you won't see the rest of the year until possibly late season. That maybe they'll come back late winter, and then you're going to have a new crop show up. I mean, not that you'll never see those deer again, but you're not going to see them every day. I had one this year that, all the way through September, I thought, oh man, he's with these other homebody deer. It's going to be a deer I'm going to have a chance at. Well, time October rolled around, he was just gone. I had one picture of him like October 16th or something at night at a mock rub tree that I'd put in. Other than that, never seen him again. No other pictures, no nothing. But I'm hoping maybe this year, now that we've had a couple other bucks that were taken, maybe he'll move in and make this more of his home range. So, but no, that's just a stud of a deer, no doubt about it. Something to be proud of. Nature can be cruel, I guess. That's just a big part of it. And I think that's a big part of why us three in particular, we're not just hunters, but we're also land managers and habitat managers. Is we want to do whatever we can to improve our land, to make things maybe just a little bit easier for the wildlife. And it's not just the deer or the turkeys. I mean, it's rabbits and squirrels and birds and all sorts of other things. But these guys, live a rough life. And if we can do just a couple little things that can improve the habitat, and yes, there is a very good chance that it may also improve our hunting opportunities. I can promise you that's not the only reason we go through all the stuff we go through is just to improve our hunting chances.
Yeah, and you talk about like the things to help the deer. You think about the conditions they go through. Let's think about the polar vortex that we had here this past. Was that last week? I think it was.
Yeah,
just
last week.
Brutally cold temperatures and
Polar apocalypse.
Yeah, polar apocalypse there. But Mike, you had. Like you were talking about your food plot. Wipe clean now, but maybe that's what it took to get him through that.
It helped get him through it, and
you could have lost some deer, Louie. I know you've got a lot of beans standing next to you that there's a lot of deer using.
I planted 6 acres, and those were gone real quick this year. Luckily, we've got farmers to the south of us that just couldn't get in the field because it was too wet in October, November, and there's a lot of beans and corn standing. It's like perfect. It's like the perfect year for that. I count my blessings. Every nice young and up and comer I've got still alive. With that, you get negative 30 temperatures, and I just got lucky to have
the food
80 acres of standing beans and 80 acres of standing corn within 100 yards of some of my best bedding. It's like it's just meant to be, It's like, and then I'm finding the sheds of some of my nice 3 and 4 year olds, and it's just perfect year for having some farmers that couldn't get their beans out. Thank God.
We've got the same
thing.
thing.
I saw one of the farmers up the road, and I pulled over, and I'm like, I haven't sent my thank you card yet. He's like, what do you mean? What? I said, you've been feeding all my deer. What do you mean? You're standing beans. There's 100. I don't want to say 100. There's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a big number.
They probably wouldn't. They wouldn't pull 10 bushel an acre at this point.
No, he's like, I guess they won't be very good if I ever try to get them out. I'm like,
no,
probably not.
No,
he was blown away by 100 deer. No way. And I'm like, oh yeah, you'd be surprised.
And they can eat a lot more than.
Yeah.
You started about your 6 acres is gone already. Mike, you had 2.5 back here.
Yeah, and my deer number, my resident deer numbers are pretty small. We try to keep it that way. But the neighborhood still has a good amount of deer. But I think by the end of this winter, by the time this polar vortex hit, the word was out, and that's why we were seeing all these deer out here. So
we had the same thing in Missouri.
An average of 30 deer, I would say, had a couple acres of beans wiped out in 10, 12 days. Just no time.
There's just south of us, there's probably 100. Well, I guess there's more than that, but in total around us, right there's probably close to 500 acres of beans still in.
Wow.
But there's one field that's 90 and another 20, and I know they've had to been piled into it because you drove down the road and you looked, and it's like there's not one deer track alongside the road, and it's like you just know where they're all at.
All there.
Yep.
Yeah, they're huddled up in Then they're probably not laying or bedding in places you'd think they are, because they're probably just bedded close to the food.
They're just bedded right next to it. They're not traveling distances to go.
They might sacrifice the thermal cover for the food.
That's something that last doe that I shot when Tyler and I were blood trailing him. We got into this strip of timber, and sure enough, what did we see? Deer beds just everywhere inside.
Deer beds, trails, and
right off all this food. They were just piled in there, several of them all over, and that's not typical deer bedding area.
No.
There's not a lot of thermal cover at all.
Yeah.
It's somewhat thick, but it's still open. You get down to the ground, it's still pretty open. But again, they walk up and they walk 10 yards, and there's half acre of beans right there in front of them.
I'm sure their winter coats right now are as thick as they've ever been, just because they adapt.
And there was a lot of browse. They're going to browse inside there. Literally, those deer are bedding 50 yards from the food.
Right.
Where the food was and where the beds are was 50 yards. They're up, browsing around in there, and then they come out during the day and go back, and that just goes to show you the power of food. A lot of people, when you watch the TV shows, a lot of people anymore late season, especially in Iowa, sitting over standing beans and a foot of snow on the ground, you're gonna have some opportunities there, and I think that's even with bow season here in Illinois. If you're, the rut's the rut, deer are going to go, but you never know where that deer is going to be. That target buck, if he's going to be on the east or the west in your farm or in the neighbor's place, but when you get food in there and they're a slave to their stomach, you pretty well know where those deer are going to go. Once you get a pattern and figure out where he's at, that's where he's going to be. And you know, you can use the food plots if they, you know, for the hunting aspect of it to target deer. I mean, it's
when you have a desirable food, as in, you know, beans, and then you have the conditions that make them a necessity almost. I mean, granted, they would always like to eat the standing beans all winter long, but you're at a point now where they don't really have many other options. So it can bring in a lot of deer from a lot of different places.
The last podcast we had that mysteriously didn't work out so good. That day I had went down and just did a little bit of thickening up of an area that had a bunch of just young maple trees, and Hinge cut a lot of them, but also just cut them completely off and laid them down. And then, you know, we did the podcast. We ate squirrel legs until our guts exploded, and had a couple adult beverages. That was an awesome day.
It was a good night.
An even better podcast.
Yeah,
but a lot of people will probably never hear it.
You never know.
That explains why it didn't get recorded correctly.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it. I'd listened to a podcast, and they were talking about, you know, the mysterious hinge cut, and if it's good, if it's bad, when to do it. And a lot of guys were saying if you see a good cold front coming through and you don't have a lot of grains, beans, corn like we do, or even brassicas, that's the perfect time to lay a bunch of trees down on the ground, because the buds, the buds of those trees, it's like a bean pod, you know, has way more, you know, value to it nutritionally. So, curiosity got the best of me. I went back down to the area I'd hinge cut, and those maple buds the deer can't resist them, and I couldn't find a bud.
Yeah,
they'd eaten all the buds. So that's something to consider if you might not have beans and corn, and you've got your own property or a property that you can get rid of some trees that might not have a lot of timber value, or even if they do have value and you just want to provide food. They ate every single bud off those maples.
That is another benefit to hinge cutting, is the browse that you can make available on that, you know, 3 to 5, 6 foot range, you know, that a deer prefers.
And those buds are just about the same size as a soybean.
Yeah, it's pretty darn close.
You know, on certain trees.
Yeah.
And they just nipped them off. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing too. I mean, just because you have beans there doesn't mean that's only what they're going to eat. I mean, their deer's a browser. I mean, they're naturally just a browser, so they're gonna eat beans, maybe the primary source, but they're still gonna be other things there.
I did some joking, you know, throughout the fall hunting. We had some snow there in November, like November 9th or something, I think it was, and it was cold and snowy, and I was hunting in the timber, hunting the mule deer buck, and all of a sudden I see the deer, and they're over there like standing at the edge of the timber eating invasives and, you know, just leaves. I'm like, what are you idiots doing? You got all these standing beans right here, and you're over here eating these nasty leaves off of these invasive plants. And, you know, but that's just how they are. I mean, they get their nutrition from all over the place. And there was actually a point this fall, late fall, early winter, that I thought, man, I've got too much food. You know, there was so many beans left, that made it and grew into the season. I thought, man, I'm going to have, you know, all these beans here when it comes time to plant back in this spring. So much for that idea. I'll tell you that.
Boy, were you wrong.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm going to change a whole lot about as far as my amount of food. The one thing that I think this did prove is we were kind of on the fence about brassicas. In this area, this immediate area, some guys had tried them. Some people have tried them off and on throughout the years and had not very good results with them. So I decided to still try it, a half acre, and I've got a smorgasbord. I had some stuff left over. I think it's
Mike, I think you had 10 tons of forage in that half
oh,
acre.
It was unbelievable.
Half acre, the way it looks.
I started with Pure Attraction, Whitetail Institute Pure Attraction, and it looked like it was coming on a little slow, and we weren't seeing the brassicas we were wanting. So then I had another bag of, it was either tall tine tubers or beets and greens. I don't remember which one, because I put one there and one in the power lines. So we threw that in top of it. And then Tyler's like, well, you know, you could probably use some more oats in there. You know, they're hammering these oats. So then I went in and put some oats in it. And then I had also seeded in a full rate of Imperial Whitetail Clover for next year. All of this in a half acre plot. I mean, and then all of a sudden we got some rains. and I'd put my fertilizer and stuff on it. We got the rains, and holy smokes, it was like a jungle. You couldn't hardly walk through it. I mean, it was so thick.
Radishes are a foot long, and the turnips look like softballs. And
just so thick. And the deer were in there even early season, hammering them oats. Well, obviously, I mean, I shot that doe there October 12th or something, and I shot that 160 there November 3rd off that food plot. It's doe bedding next to it. You didn't see quite the numbers there as you would in the beans, but they were still there. And when the snows came, they were digging through. Well, even the day that I shot that last doe, hunted those 2 days, it was so neat to go out and watch them. And they're almost like a snow blower. I mean, they get in there with their legs, and they just start digging so fast, and there's just snow flying everywhere. And then, they're pulling the leaves up and pulling some of the bulbs up and eating them. And so when I went out Saturday, it was warming up, but we still had a lot of snow on the ground. I was just trying to get an idea, do a little scouting, see how much food I had, and do some scouting, see where all the main trails were, and get a better idea of, how the deer were coming in and out. I went and checked that field, and sure enough, I mean, they had been in there as well and just, eating at the bare dirt in a lot of places. So I don't think that I can not do brassicas again. I don't know if I'm going to do a full half acre, especially since I've already got the full rate of clover in there. What I may do is I may do a quarter acre of brassicas and a quarter acre in clover, and then just rotate those back and forth. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I want to do that yet, because I believe that you can only do brassicas a couple times in a row before you need to.
They need nitrogen. Did you put any nitrogen on your?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I had done soil tests and had everything that I needed, and
it showed.
It showed. It really did. Yeah. So
I'm seeing that too.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people, they put food plots in, and the number one thing that most people neglect to do is take a soil sample and apply the right amount of fertilizer for what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you don't do that in your food plots, if you just go till the dirt up and throw some seed down and say, well, it didn't work, didn't grow, seed was junk or this, or blame on everything else. If you didn't start from the basics, why should you expect to have any results?
Well, you can get a brassica to grow in your driveway.
Yeah,
but it's just to how many and to what size.
How I'm seeing like giant bulbs, and then I'm also seeing the deer just devour them here in the last 2-3 weeks. When it went from like -30 to then it warmed back up. Last week we had 56 degrees on
almost 100-degree change.
Right, crazy. That's when they just absolutely pounded them. And I planted corn there. I put a bunch of urea over the top. Actually, I put urea, tilled it in, and then I put corn. The corn didn't make, so then I, top seeded it, top dressed it with radishes and turnips, and I mean, I'm talking bumper crop, and I credit it to the urea, the nitrogen.
Well, and expanding on the point that Tyler just made, you hear it everywhere you go about the importance of getting your soil sample, making the correct amendments, whether it be the lime to get your pH right, the fertilizer, the NP and the K that you need. That is a step that's often overlooked. And so what I did is, all my main food plots I tested them all, did everything as I was supposed to. And I was lucky because my food plots had been in commercial row crop production for several years. And the prior tenant that I had rented it to was very good about, staying up on things. So my pH, one field was 6.8 and one field was 6.9. So I'm starting out very good there. But however, I still did go through and apply the correct amount of fertilizer, and my plots all took off. They were slow going. A lot of these, like the clover and stuff that I planted May 15th, so I planted it late. But once it got going, the weeds were everywhere, but I just kept mowing it, and then we got some rains, and then finally everything come together, and it just took off and looked fantastic. The point of this whole rambling deal that I've got going on here is, in my power lines, I opened up the power lines, a little half-acre spot inside the power lines that had gone overgrown. Opened that up, did a soil test there, and got that back, and I think the pH was like 5 It's way low. It needs a ton of lime. It needs more than a ton. It needs a couple tons of lime, actually. But I had an extra bag of a Brassica blend. I don't know what it was at this point. And I had bought it the year before and didn't use it, so it needed to be used. So I just went ahead and threw it out to see what would happen. And I think we also put I had some leftover oats and triticale when I had top seeded my beans. So we just kind of threw all that out there as well. And it grew some. There was some green out there. Some of the brassicas did make bulbs. The ones that I have seen are more just a touch bigger than a golf ball. So they didn't get very large. They didn't come in real thick. And essentially, I planted the same methods. I disced up and prepared the seed bed the same way, packed it. The only difference was I was planting into soil that needed amended, needed the pH brought up, and also needed fertilizer. And the results just weren't there. And so going forward, I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to plant there and then how I'm going to go about amending the soil to make it right. In the short term, I will probably just keep it cleared out, maybe throw some oats or something out there just to keep something there, but something that's cheap, affordable, until I can get a plan of how I'm going to get all the lime brought in and get that incorporated and really make it an actual good plot. So it just goes to show so many times, you see these bags throw and grow, shade tolerant, whatever. You're going to get out of it what you put in it. And, spend the $15 to have a soil test done and then do what it says. I mean, yes, it's going to cost you money, but the seed's going to cost you money. Your time is costing you money. And if I'm going to go through the hassle of doing something, I want to get the most out of it that I can. I'm not looking for something that, would make it on the cover of Outdoor Life, as these paintings we're sitting here next to did. I'm just looking for something that, will, like Tyler always said, you're not looking to get, 80 bushel acre beans or anything. I mean, so it's in perspective. But again, that doesn't mean I'm just going to not do anything. I mean, I still want it to produce something.
That's right.
And get something back out of all the efforts that we put into it. So it is, I love doing it. It's fun, but it's still work, So I was always taught that, you do something once, you do it right.
Yeah.
So
it's a labor of love.
So
love doing it. I had a great time spreading fertilizer this year.
Yeah.
Went and rented a cart and drug it home with the truck and figured out I didn't have a whole lot of experience with those fertilizer carts. And now I have something I can say, yeah, I know a little bit about them.
Yeah.
I fertilized all my clover this year for the first time ever.
Oh, really?
Typically I never did that.
But that's something you don't necessarily have to do at least nitrogen.
Not every year.
And that's where I'm at this year. Yeah. Now that you're talking about that is, this will be year 2 for my clover plots. And I don't know if I need to go put, some P&K on there, or if I can just let it ride. Because I'm all for putting on there what it needs, but I'm not all for just putting on there something on there that's just, throwing money to the wind. I mean,
I got a soil test before I planted it. I seeded it, and then I went to the fertilizer place and said, here's my pH, here's my soil samples. I just planted clover. Of course, they've got more experience with cattle, guys that are in pastures, but they said, here's what I would do. I said, load me up, and they loaded me up with potash and DAP. Is that what it was?
Probably.
And sent me home, and I hooked it up to the tractor and spread it, and the clover just exploded. Of course, it got a rain on it.
The rain's a huge part to it.
And I'm growing clover in some clay, real nasty soil.
But that just goes to show that the guys, if you're not taking the steps, you're not doing everything, and you're not getting good food plots, and you're scratching your head why.
Yeah.
Sit back and look at your process of what you're doing. If you're missing a step in there, that's your problem probably.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, if you spend the money to go buy a piece of ground and spend the money on the seed and you spend all this money and everything, so you go spend $150 on fertilizer to make your plots grow like they should. I mean, it's money well spent.
Well, and I think a lot of guys just throw it on the ground and it looks good, but the deer, just because it looks good doesn't mean that the deer like the taste of it,
No, and I think I spent $350 or something on fertilizer to do about 5 acres, 4.5, 5 acres. a lot of that, I mean, I had a lot of nitrogen in there too. That going forward, I don't think I'm going to need as much. For one, I've got the clover that
Providing nitrogen.
that will be self-sufficient. And then my plan is, of course, then the other plots are beans, which can fix nitrogen as well. And then I've also interseeded in, triticale and oats and wheat into the standing beans, which again should do the same thing. I was just thinking about today, I need to pose a question on Growing Deer's Facebook page or something, asking them about the buffalo system, because Dr. Woods has talked about how he's got fields that he has done this, and essentially that's kind of what I'm doing, is a modified version of it, where you're planting beans on beans on beans with a cool season grass in the in between. So that's kind of your crop rotation, is your it will be cereal rye is what I'll eventually go with. This year I just happened to be able to get triticale for the same price, and so I use triticale. So going forward, it'll be oats and cereal rye, top seeded into the standing beans. And he says he has done that with his buffalo blend system through Eagle, and that he hasn't put a drop of fertilizer on some of these plots in 6, 7, 8 years. And they're doing fantastic. So I need to find out, if what's recommended, if I still need to put some P&K on. But overall, I don't think my fertilizer costs are going to be near as what they were initially getting it started. So, my Nebraska plot, I'll probably have to put a little bit on that. But I think I spent like $37 or something on fertilizer for that plot. Nice. And again, this does add up. We do spend a lot of money doing what we do, but it's my hobby. I mean, I don't go to the tavern. I don't play lottery. I don't go to the casino. I mean, this is what I do. I mean, I used to own a boat. I was a big boater for years.
Looks like you spend money on some Kirby art.
Well, this is kind of a Ryan Kirby art mini collection down here. Kind of a little gallery
looks good.
Homage to him. So yeah, we've got the 3 deer outdoor life covers, and then
was there a dog one? Wasn't there?
There was a dog one, and then this year was a moose. I didn't get either one of those two. So
why not?
I'm on strike until the outdoor life cover goes back to being a deer or turkey. I still got to get scrape line. I think scrape line's going to go right here.
Yeah.
So I got that spot kind of saved for that one.
Scrape line's awesome.
It is.
I got it for Christmas, and it's huge. It's awesome.
It's a beautiful work of art. So yeah, I got my turkey stuff over there. That tail fan and wings, that's my first solo bird that I killed last year, and both of his NWTF turkey stamp prints are there, and then that sketch daily is that Hunter's Notes or Hunter's Field Notes or something, I think they call it. Has all the information of the turkey kill on there. So
you get a nice little man cave and a nice little Ryan Kirby throne.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, just
man crush.
His little display,
and you got some nice deer hanging on the wall.
Well, they're not bad. I got that little scrubby one there. First mature deer I ever seen while hunting. That was at a time where I think I had only seen probably 3 or 4 deer from a tree stand.
Different taxidermists?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obvious.
Very much so. One of them is my new current taxidermist, and the other one is not. And so one of them is doing the 2 deer that I have. Sure. So he'll have 3 of my 4 mounts will be from one guy. Old Barn Taxidermy outside of Fort Madison, Iowa. Sam Gaylord has been fantastic to work with for me. He's been very accommodating, and I've been happy with his work. So then the other deer up there is the 150 I shot, my first full sit bow hunting on this property. So
beautiful.
It is. It's kind of nice to come down here and sit and just kind of get you in the mood and get me reminiscing. My wife doesn't give me any grief over having even deer antler curtain rods hanging up or anything like that. So
it's cozy.
It
is
very
cozy.
It's
it doesn't look like this around the Zen residence.
Yeah, it will soon. We've got something in the making here.
Got some new ideas coming down the pike.
Got some stuff going on that I think be maybe even a little bit better accommodations than the Deerland headquarters out in the garage.
Yeah,
we might have something a little better. I might even just build a studio for us. You guys don't even know.
Are you finishing off in the garage?
We'll see.
There's a nice room there on the south end that would be kind of a trophy room, man cave.
Yeah. one of you guys are tax assessors, so we don't.
We don't
I don't
talk
worry.
about that stuff.
We don't talk about.
You got
additions.
an assessor and a member of the board of review here with you, so you don't want to be talking about taxes or what you're doing or what you're not doing.
Podcast studios are tax exempt.
Yeah. And let's just be clear here: the place that Louis is talking about is not in a jurisdiction in which anyone that's part of this podcast is a tax assessor currently. So there will be no favoritism played or anything like that going on. We're all on the up and up around these parts.
That's right.
Thanks for the disclaimer, Mike.
Yes, I just wanted to throw that out there. This is going out there in the worldwide interwebs, and you never know who all might listen to it. And once it's out there, it's permanent. So
we got a lot of good feedback from our first 9 episodes, and
8
and
episodes.
Then we took 8.
Yeah.
Okay, because number 9 got.
Yeah.
It's
the
9,
lost
this is 9.2.
files.
Yeah, this is 9.2 here. So
we got. I think we're gonna have a guest here soon.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I've been working here the last couple of days is trying to get it figured out, and I've got it all figured out system-wise, where we can run a phone through our board and have quality sound. However, my cell phone just is not working with it, so we've got to get that figured out still. So hopefully,
and he can come to us too, maybe.
And that would be more ideal. If we can make it work. But we've got a lot of great guests that we want to get on, and at some point we're going to have them on the phone. Luckily, we do have good cell phone coverage here. That
last podcast we mentioned something. We got one of our listeners. He's loyal to us. He was actually wondering, hey, what the heck's going on? We haven't heard from you guys in a month and a half. He is a member of the Elks Lodge in Keokuk, Iowa. And they've got a really cool program, and maybe the Elks Lodge does it across the country or the Midwest, but the Elks Lodge will actually take deer hides from, whether it's a roadkill deer or a deer you shot or whatever. They'll take those hides. You just, when you're skinning your deer out, just skin it out. They've got a big 55-gallon drum sitting outside the building, and you can drop it off, and then they take that and they make goods out of it for the needy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
They'll take them all. I mean, we're late in the season for that, obviously now.
We're a little past that
Well,
point now.
yeah.
Well, unless you roll like some of you guys do and late season hunts, post-season.
January 20th.
Actually,
they'll take deer hides and they make purses and all kinds of stuff out of leather
and we will
gloves.
We'll say another reminder, once the season approaches, and it's stuff like that a great organization as the Elks, that does a lot of good, not only locally but nationally, and that people like us can, maybe do a small part. I mean, think about it. We've all gotten rid of plenty of hides. I mean, that one I shot on the 20th, she laid on the back of the buggy for a couple weeks because the polar vortex hit, and it got frigid. And finally, when the weather broke, I was able to go, dispose of her. So for us to be able to give back to something that we otherwise have no use for, we try to utilize as much as we can, but
throw them in the ditch.
Yeah,
typically.
Let the animals, carry on the circle of life, I guess. So yes, that's fantastic, and we'll get some more information when it comes time this fall, and make sure that we have that available. And if you want to find out more information, reach out to one of us. Reach out to our Instagram or Facebook, or if you know any of us personally, send us a message that way as well. And even like I just seen the other day, Brian Finch from Hamilton, one of our friends, his wife's a science teacher, and she was asking for deer hearts. So the mule deer buck, we saved the heart for her, and Brian stopped by and picked it up. And here after the winter break was over, she did her experiment, and she just had some pictures of it the other day that I don't remember how many hearts she had, like 20 hearts maybe.
Cool.
They had some pig tongues and stuff like that they were able to dissect. And,
cool.
I actually wanted to eat the heart. That last doe that I shot, I wanted to take it and eat it. I've never ate one, but I want to, so next year I will. But I would, over me eating the heart, I would much rather, some junior high kids get a chance to, learn something from it. And so, yeah.
Cool.
I've never tried deer heart.
I
haven't either. But the more I, follow Stephen Ranella and some of these other guys, I mean, they truly honestly say it's one of the best cuts you could ever have.
Yeah.
And there's several different ways to cook it. So I definitely want to try it. as far as the innards go, I mean, I love chicken livers and chicken gizzards.
Mm-hmm.
Walt, Tyler's dad, has helped me clean a couple turkey birds, and he has gotten the liver and gizzards for me, but I never did cook them up. I got them in the freezer. I haven't. There's not much there. I mean, I'm the type, if I'm going to fry something up, I want to make a batch of it, and I just haven't thawed them out and tried it yet. But
there is a shelf life on those.
Yeah. So
I had a bad experience. I mean, I love gizzards. I had a bad experience with a gizzard once in a restaurant.
Really?
Wasn't cleaned out.
Oh, no.
Took a bite of it.
Oh, no.
I noticed it wasn't just gizzard meat. It was corn and chicken poop, and it was green. Spit it out, and it was green. Yeah, it was
They forgot to clean the gizzard out.
Yeah.
Hadn't been cleaned.
You kind of got to cut that gizzard and open it up and pull that.
Yeah, it wasn't. But it's fried, so you don't know. You
don't know
pop
until it's too late. But
and then you're eating corn. I mean, it's cracked corn.
I
remember biting down. It was like
at least it wasn't a rock, I guess.
Haven't tried one since.
This is like cracked corn. It didn't scare me that bad. I mean,
I like chicken.
It's going to take more than that to keep me away from a chicken.
It was at a restaurant. I mean, KFC is where I like to get my gizzards if they still get them.
When we were young, when I was young, that was always the big thing. I think it was Thursdays. Tuesdays or Thursdays, they had the liver and gizzard special, and man, they were good. I'll tell you, one of the best places that I get them now,
Chester Fried
County Market in Carthage.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times I can call ahead and just order some up, and
Locker in Cahokia.
Pop them.
Yeah, they have Chester Fried there too.
Yeah, they do.
But because I think they cook theirs with like a convection fryer or
it's not real greasy. It's just a nice,
and it helps tenderize it too.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing with chicken gizzards is they can be a little tough.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in Mount Sterling and down in Brown County that I'd go to. They'd have them on the buffet, and they pressure cooked theirs, but they almost pressure cooked them too much and almost made them like too tender, I guess. But man, they're good catfish bait too.
But I've never had a turkey gizzard.
I hadn't either, but
Got to be a little bit bigger.
They are bigger. Yep. So speaking of turkeys,
turkey season.
I just sent out a message to our group chat. This Monday, February 12th, is the final day to apply for third lottery Illinois turkey season or turkey tags. So if you're wanting to get a second tag, or if for some reason you hadn't got one the first two lotteries, or you just forgot, you've got until this Monday to get your application in. Then I think
over the counter
March 12th will be over the counter. So I put a reminder in my phone so I can try to go to the farm store on the 12th first thing and hopefully pick up a third tag that way.
You even gave us the numbers as far as what's left.
I did. You have that handy there, Lou? Or?
Yeah, it's on the Deerland thread here. You've got remaining tags after second lottery by season. 112 tags are available first season. Only 7 tags are left for second season.
Yeah.
84 for third, 161 for fourth, and 178 for fifth. So there'll be a ton of probably
a lot of fourth and fifth will be left,
and
maybe a couple first season. That's what I put in as my first priority for this third lottery.
First season's the only one that doesn't have a weekend.
That's right. That's right. But it's opening day, and Tyler has passed that on to me that you got to hunt opening day. So I always try to get out there.
Just something about
me
opening
and Tyler
day.
will be out here opening day.
Yeah. Well, and Walt and I just texted Tyler's dad. He just responded to me a couple minutes ago. I was reminding him about the season, so he's going to get his application in as well. So, I think Tyler, he's already got opening week planned out of who all's coming over to hunt and where all we're going to go and how many birds we're going to kill and where we're going to sit at and set up on them. So
here on Bowley Farms?
Yeah. You were telling me about when we were squirrel hunting. Well, you go here and I'll go here and we'll put Dad over here. And
I don't remember that.
Well, what the heck, I mean, we all got first season tags, or hopefully will. I mean, I got landowners too.
The number of turkeys around this place, I know where I'm going to be.
There are plenty of turkeys. That's for darn sure. So, it'd be awesome for me to kill 3 turkeys. I've never killed more than 1 in a year. So, we'll try to shoot for 2. But it's coming, man. I mean, it'll be here before you know it. Yeah. I'm already starting to get out of the mood of like watching deer hunting shows and stuff, and kind of starting to creep towards doing a little turkey watching. I always try to make sure I save all my turkey hunting episodes throughout the year and come back and watch them. And there's also another thing, the Penn Hody Project. It's a YouTube feature with, I think his name is Dave Owens. And I come across him through the Hunting Public guys this past spring. He's a huge turkey hunter. He's killed turkeys all over the country. This year he decided to make it into kind of like a full season of his turkey hunts of everywhere that he was going. And he hunted, from early season Florida to late season in Maine, all over the place. Then this summer he went through and edited it and released all the episodes. And I don't remember how many there were, 40-some episodes maybe. And I haven't watched any of them because, again, they were dropping in July and August when I'm thinking deer hunting.
Sure.
So that's something to check out on YouTube. It's called the Pinhoti Project, Pinhoti. And the dude's he's a cool guy to watch and heck of a personality. And I don't know, maybe I'll reach out to him, see if we can't get him on turkey season time and
do
a little talking to us. But, yeah, that is coming.
I'm looking forward to turkey season.
So am I. I mean,
for anybody that's hunting Florida, I think that opens first tomorrow, March 2nd. I was just looking at that, South Florida. So
it'll be here quick. It's just a few weeks away. So it never ends.
Yeah, it's just.
Anybody got any trips planned anywhere?
No.
Louis,
Florida would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, sure would. One of these days, maybe we'll get to go.
I think we're going to head to a bunch of the guys from Whitetail Properties, going to head out to Kansas for a week or 4 or 5 days and just do a group hunt, kind of a fun little deal. So
cool.
Go there, and I wouldn't mind slipping up to Nebraska for a day or two myself, or 3 or 5. But
yeah.
And I plan on it. I mean, it's a personal goal of mine to obtain my Grand Slam, a turkey Grand Slam. So I've been looking at some Merriam hunts out west. There's a couple places that I had in mind. I'll probably go with an outfitter. I don't know yet. We'll see. But I'm not quite ready, I don't think, this year to venture off. I need to get a little bit more experience under my belt. So.
Sure.
But eventually, yeah, I'd like to take a western trip each spring, and even after I get the Rio and the Merriam, still go out there. I mean, just see the country and get away. And
Tyler and I have been able to hunt out west and get our Grand Slam, and there's places I would just love to go back to every single year.
Yep.
You just time and family and priorities is
and I
changes.
think it's something that going out west for a big game hunt in the fall, maybe one day once to take an elk trip or a mule deer trip, but they're not high on my priority list. And 2 is whitetail on my land is a high priority, on my list that time of year. And I don't want to be taking a week off or 10 days off to go somewhere that time of year. And also, as most of us married folk know, we walk a sheet of thin ice usually by the time November's rolling around, that the last thing I want to do is say, hey, I'm going to be 1,000 miles away, because I get a lot. I'm very, very blessed. I get a lot of leeway to hunt any time I want, but it helps that I'm only 150 yards from the back door, Essentially, you could yell at me when dinner's ready, and I could come in like a kid.
Ring the dinner bell.
So that is a very
careful.
good upside.
She might start doing that.
No, I know. But I do. I'd like to start doing, like I said, something in the spring. I'm not a rougher, I'm not going out sleeping in a tent, sleeping under the stars, doing all that. I'm gonna go have amenities and enjoy my time, especially after a long day of hiking and walking. The last thing I want to do is be sleeping on the ground and needing a shower and
public land style.
Yeah, and it's just not. It's not for me.
I enjoy it.
I enjoy people. I love watching people do it, and that's cool if it's for you. It's not for this guy. I mean, I need running water, air conditioning, some pay TV would be nice. Direct TV, Dish Network, cable, whatever. I need something.
So you're saying you're not going with me to Nebraska in the tent?
No, negative.
Off
Ghost
grid.
Rider.
You don't want to have to bury your toilet paper. You just want to throw it in water.
And each is their own. But I think to me, a lot of those hunts that I've done out west, especially the turkey hunts and stuff, that's been probably the most memorable part of it.
Yeah.
I remember just one night of just hunting your butt off all day long, just going and putting birds to roost, and you're on public ground. And it's like, okay, the truck's back that way 1.5 miles, and you take off, and it's just the middle of nowhere, pitch dark, and you get to the truck and you just drop the tailgate, set the tent up, cook supper, go to bed, get up the next morning, and hike right back down and go hunting again.
No, and that's fantastic. I need a shower. That's what it really, really boils down to. I mean, I got my cell phone. I can keep myself entertained with that. I have to have a shower. When you're fat like me, you've got nooks
stinking.
and crannies that, that start stinking, they get
stinking.
rubbed. I mean, fat guys need a shower.
I've been known to take a shower in a lake once or twice.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like we're not going 3 days hiking a mile and a half to birds, and then this fat guy ain't getting a shower, because I guarantee you, it's the last time you'd ever invite me on a trip. I promise you that. So
Just don't get downwind.
Yeah.
Thank God turkeys can't smell.
That's right too. So no, and I don't know, the right opportunity. I mean. I don't know if Tyler's the one that I need to be going hunting with. I mean,
we've got places that have amenities too. I mean, it's not like
we're going to Kansas. We got amenities. So.
I can get you in touch with somebody out in South Dakota that's got it set up. Yeah.
So, but that's on my list, and I started looking into it last year, thinking, maybe I'll do it for this year, but I didn't feel that I was ready, and but I do want to do that, and I could use a good getaway, I guess, in the spring. I mean. Something just to kind of go recharge your batteries and have some fun. But to me, that's the one downside. Looking to go do this by myself. The one downside to doing that would be is you don't get that camp atmosphere. And that's something I love about deer hunting. Even as we don't get it as much during bow season, other than our podcasts and stuff. But that's some of the best times of hunting is sitting around talking about it, hanging out with the guys, and eating good food and just enjoying life,
That's what I enjoy about turkey season. It's like it's a group hunt.
Yeah.
I mean, just
way lower stress, and
you just go have a good time. And I mean, when you get on a bird, it's serious, and when you're not, you're going along having a good time, this and that, and
you can find another one somewhere.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's
not like hunting a one deer,
right?
Well, you go sit in a blind or in a tree stand. It's like you sit there and you're motionless, and you're after this one deer or whatever you're after.
You're losing sleep because you didn't see him or shoot him, and
it's you by yourself. And the turkey hunting, you can just make it a group effort
and that's been my thing.
time.
Like with turkey hunting, it's mostly been by myself. I mean, I think year before last I hunted every day by myself. And it's different, when you're out by yourself the night before roosting birds, you go out the next morning, hunting by yourself, and, it's different, especially about 6 or 7 days into it, when you're the only one that has to, you're not going to disappoint somebody else if you don't wake up, it's a little easier to wake up if you got someone else that's going to be waiting on you.
Sure.
So that's the only downside to turkey season, I guess, is that it can be long. I mean, the year before last, I had that landowner tag, and I never filled it. And I hunted every day. Every day of Illinois' 5 weeks of turkey season, I hunted every single day. Roosted birds every single night. It was grueling. And that just goes to show you that, it is easy to kill a turkey. There are plenty of turkeys, but when you're learning and you don't really know what you're doing, nothing's guaranteed. Now, I did miss 3 that year, so that's the caveat. 2 of them within.
You killed a turkey that year.
2 of them within 30 yards of this house. No, not that.
Oh
year.
no, you didn't that year, did you?
No. I was left hanging. So, that's why this year I'm gonna have 3 tags. Hopefully at least fill 1, but maybe get 2 or 3 of them filled. I don't think I'm gonna be going anywhere else. But that could change, I guess. You never know. I guess last year I was invited to Florida like 36 hours before the train was leaving. So that may
nobody wanted to go with me last year.
So
I shouldn't say that. I got
last resort.
Louis did go.
Last resort.
I definitely would have loved to, but again, it was just last minute. Couldn't make it work, and
I'd go again if you needed something. Just saying.
I'm sure he would. So. Anyways, I felt like there was some other stuff we were wanting to talk about while we were here. It's been so long that we haven't been on the air with anyone. But
it was a weird. I know for the trappers out there, it was a weird season.
Was it really?
Weather.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was hot, cold, and their traps were freezing up, and then it would rain, and then it was too muddy, and my trapper absolutely killed the raccoons. We trapped and killed 40 raccoons this year on my place in a matter of 7 days.
Huh.
But then it got rainy, and then it would freeze. So
made it pretty tough for setting traps.
Yeah. And then the coyote traps, you got to bury those. He was using the dog proofs for the raccoons, and the coyotes you got to kind of bury. So the ground was froze, and then it would thaw, and just a weird year for trappers here in Illinois.
And that's something that I'm going to look into doing next year. I was talking with Eric Van Alsdahl, a friend and my banker, actually, and we had a meeting a couple weeks ago, had lunch together, and he told me he was getting into it and running a few traps, and gave me enough confidence. I think it's something I'm gonna give it a shot anyhow. I don't know how successful I'll be, but I can't get rid of any less animals than I did this year because I didn't do any trapping. So the raccoons definitely need some attention. They are just bumper crops of those things, and they're just
we're turkey hunters, so they're
nest predators, something fierce. The
egg eaters,
yeah,
and they're taking the farmers hate them because they're ripping down the corn.
Yep.
And then if you're planting corn for deer, they're ripping
Yeah.
all the corn down for you're planting it for the deer, not the raccoons.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's definitely plenty of raccoons around and possums too. So that's something
Skunks, all
that I
kinds of
look
stuff.
forward to talking about on a future episode and gaining some insight myself, and then maybe implementing some of it this spring. And people ask me, what else are you going to do next? You do all this other stuff. I don't know. That's part of it.
Yeah.
That's why we spend good money to buy land, and I want to utilize it as much as I can, improve it as much as I can, and enjoy it. And also to teach my kids. I got a 3-year-old son that's just intrigued by outdoors and being outside and hanging out with dad and hunting and planting food plots and driving a tractor, and why not teach him how to trap? We can learn it together.
Yeah. I think we're gonna have a guest on that can teach us
Yeah,
a lot about
that's what
trapping.
I'm hoping. I think we can learn a lot of stuff. He's very good at trapping, so we'll try to get that lined up here, coming to you here in the off season, because it won't be long, and our brains are going to be on turkey hunting. Once I think, what is it, the 15th, April 15th, possibly, I think, is opening day for us here in Illinois, and it will
Check
run.
your rules and regulations on
Yeah,
that date.
yeah, figure out what zone you're in, but I'm sure it's April 15th, that Monday. And we'll run through like the 10th or 12th of May, something like that. So that's just the Illinois season. Like I said, Tyler, he's going to be gone during third season, I think. I'm hoping maybe, Louis, you and I can get together for a turkey hunt, even if one of us isn't actually hunting.
Sure.
I'd love to hunt with you one morning, or maybe all three of us get together for a hunt. So
that'd be cool.
because I think the plan is we'll all have you'll have a landowner, I'll have a landowner, but then we're also getting county-wide tags as well, so it'd be nice to get together with
Usually I do like a landowner 3rd, 5th, so I can hunt first season, second season,
Yeah, so I think
the whole season basically.
I'll have the landowner, and then I applied for a first, and then I probably would have did a third, but that's when Tyler will be gone. So I knew he'd be gone for sure. So I'll probably try to do a landowner first, 4th.
You need Tyler with you to kill a turkey? Or?
Well, my success rate seems
just
to improve
just
tremendously.
Take the box call and just scratch it.
And
It's not that
no,
hard.
I did. I killed mine on my own last year, and then
Has he ever told you about the story about the turkey that hit the ground, took like half a step, and he was blasting away at it?
yeah, that was the first one solo hunting.
How far was it? Was
50
it 80?
yards.
Oh, I thought
no,
you said 80.
No, it was 50 yards. I was shooting 3.5-inch long-beard XRs that
Should
you
be
say,
dead.
yep, you can shoot them.
Premature trigger finger.
Didn't even get the bird a chance.
So this was a year before last, and one of the first times ever hunting by myself. Had the bird roosted, knew where he was, and luckily some of my friends are familiar with this area and have turkey hunted this area for years, and kind of give me some ideas of how to set up on where the birds are roosted at.
Who was that?
You and Kirby.
Okay.
So I went in, got set up on him, and worked him on the roost a little bit, let him know I was there, didn't get too crazy, and he pitched down, and I had my gun just lined up. Of course, a lot of times I'll use like trigger sticks or tripod or something, just keep my gun ready. Had the gun ready, and he flew down and just landed right at the end of my gun barrel at 50 yards. I'm like, well, I got to shoot him. If I don't, he's going to see me before he ever gets close enough. I just didn't have any faith in myself. Shot. Yeah, I missed him. And then
was he spooky, or what was the
no,
deal?
he was at the end of my barrel, and that the first time I'd ever had that happen. So I shot. I mean, it's a Hail Mary. And then
Did you step it off and range find it?
I had a rangefinder. I knew exactly what it was.
I like the guy that shoots instead of the guy that's like, oh, I don't know, I didn't have a clear shot.
I
like Mike's.
It was a clear
velocity.
shot. I mean,
Let her rip.
the
I took a kid one time in that same block of timber. We were across the valley. This has been years ago, but in the birds kind of roost in the middle right there, and we snuck in because that's where they always roost. We snuck in the dark, got in there, got sit down, starts getting daylight, and start looking around like, oh man, those turkeys are like right in your face in the tree. I mean, in the tree, the turkey was close enough to shoot, but obviously it didn't. But I mean, had the gun up, and I'm like, all right, just sit here, and all of a sudden the bird flies out of the tree, hits the ground, takes about 2 steps, and he's maybe 15 yards. Blast him. But
What's the legalities of shooting a turkey?
It has to be after 7 o'clock.
I think it's 7 o'clock.
They put a time on it.
Yep.
Really?
After 7 o'clock, you
Wow.
can shoot them out of the tree.
Check
So-
your rules.
Some
and
of them
regulations.
get limb locked, and they.
I've seen birds that,
Well, it
for
depends
whatever
on what-
reason, they sit on that limb for way longer than they ever should.
You know,
But
with
you might have a decoy out, and they just don't want to fly off of it because they see a decoy and they just don't know.
and
Or
as
just- or
as
just-
the
I've even had birds that have shut up. They've been hammered on the roost, and you think, okay, they shut up, they've flown down, and you haven't heard anything for half an hour, and you take off through the woods trying to get up to where you think they went, and all of a sudden the turkey flies off, and they've been in the tree the whole time. They just
So
shut
if it's
up.
7, so if it's 7 o'clock from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, there's
towards the end
quite
of the
a bit
season, it's getting closer and closer towards the end of the season.
right.
So it's still not like
Mm-hmm.
sunrise, legal
But at
shooting
the end
light.
of the season, there's more foliage, so you probably don't have any shots at.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you hunting 5th season and you got a turkey wide open up in a limb?
well, your days
No-
should get longer.
Yeah, actually, it
You're
it
more
should
probable.
get
You're more probable to have that
late season.
early season, not
No, late season.
late season.
Because late season they fly off way earlier. I mean, I've killed birds late season at
Yeah,
5:45. So actually, early season
Is when
sometimes it doesn't get light till 6:30. So
is that what it? Okay.
if he sleeps in 30 minutes, you could pop him off the limb.
Yeah,
It's weird that they put 7 a.m. as a time. That's weird.
I think it's kind of
It-
it's that way in a
I
couple
think
states. I think.
I mean, it's maybe a little unethical.
I don't want to shoot one off a limb myself.
No, but
but that just
why wouldn't it be? By God, a half hour before sunrise, you can kill them. Maybe we're wrong on the 7 a.m.
no, it's 7
Is
a.m.
it?
from
Yeah.
the limb. 7 a.m. from the limb for
weird.
sure. I
That's
just
weird
read it the other day again, but
because I mean, some
I've
guys
set up-
probably grew up shooting them off the limb or shooting them.
Well, and I think different parts of the country, there's different ways of doing things. That's why, our season ends at 1 o'clock, or is it 2 o'clock?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock, yeah.
One.
And to some and I think part of that is the states that allow you to hunt the evenings. There are people say, well, that's just cheating because you know where they're coming back to. You can sit and ambush them as they're coming back to their tree and on and on and on. But it's just where you're at, where your what your traditions are. I guess that's just like us. There are still places in this country where it's legal to run dogs for deer,
Sure.
to chase deer down. And you talk about that around here, people will be saying that's crazy to do that. Who would ever want to do it? Well, when that's your tradition, then it's a different perspective. So
I've had a few times I've set up knowing where birds were roosted the night before and go in. I didn't know the tree they were in, but thought they're in this area, and I go in, I'll set up, and
They're gone.
no, it's like it gets to be daylight, and you're like, oh wow, I'm way too close to that bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like
close
above
enough
ya.
that you could almost shoot the turkey. And
Like too close.
yeah, I had that one morning. It was windy. I mean, just down in Missouri. I mean, it was just windy as all get out. And I'm walking in, and I stop. I'm like, man, I think I just heard a turkey gobble. I mean, it was that windy where I was like, I don't know what that. I think it was a turkey gobble. Didn't know where it was. I kept walking a little bit, and I hear it again. I stop and I look up, and it's like literally above me is this bird, and I just sit down. And then he flies out in the pasture, and I jump up and run to the tree, which was 20 yards from me that he was roosted in, and spun around the front, calling right back to me. But
Yeah.
one of those that it was. I mean, yeah, could you have? Yes, for
Yeah.
sure, could have killed a turkey out of a tree, but
Yeah, when you're
that's just not.
under them and you can hear their droppings hitting the leaves. And
You're
You
a
hear
little
'em-
too close.
you hear them drumming way before they're gobbling. You're
Well,
like,
just
"Yeah,
this
it's way too
last
close."
year, I was hunting just off the yard. I mean, just 15 yards off my backyard.
This place is paradise.
It,
It's like a zoo out here.
so 2 years ago, I missed one in this spot again, and I worked this one good. I mean, I knew an area where he was at. I went and I got set up again right off the backyard. He pitched down. He was just over this little ditch on the other side. And, I'm working him. He's walking a big circle. And finally, I talked him into crossing the ditch and coming down. And I knew where he was going to be coming at. However, I set up a little too close to the trail. and I had my gun 2/3 of the way there, and he got down this ditch and back up it in a hurry, and he walked behind a little 4-inch tree, and I thought I could, get my gun on him. Spooked him, took a Hail Mary shot, missed him. And then that same year, I was getting ready to leave for work one morning. I look out, and there's a long-beard and 2 hens out in my driveway by my garage. So I went back in and got my turkey hunting stuff and went back out, and they were going away from my garage towards the backyard, and I got around and beat the hens, or beat the long-beard to the backside of the garage, but I didn't beat the hens. As soon as I got there, they got there, and they spotted me right away, took off, and blew that hunt as well. But
were you late to work?
No. It happened
Never.
2 minutes. It happened 2 minutes. But so then this past year, this same area had one roosted and had a good idea where he was going to be at, and so I go back there, and sure enough, morning time comes. Not hearing anything. I thought, well, what the heck is going on here? And I'm looking all around, and I scanned every single tree I could visibly see with my binoculars all over. Did have a couple hens that I found, but I could not find this bird that was gobbling. So it was, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes after sunrise, so 45 minutes after the legal shooting light, I finally said, to heck with it, and I stood up, and all of a sudden, right above me, this bird took off, and there had been a bird in a tree right above my head, 20 feet above my head this whole time. And for some reason, I don't know if maybe he had seen me. I don't know why he stayed in the tree as long as he did that morning, but literally it was a half hour or so after legal shooting light. I couldn't find this gobbler, and I stood up, and as soon as I took a step, he flew out. He was right above, literally 20 feet above my head. So lesson learned, you stick to where you're at. So
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of those. The other thing too, when you're turkey hunting, safety.
Yeah.
Be sure of your target, because a little short story here that I won't name the farm or the people, but I was turkey hunting one morning, and I had a bird on a point. I went down to the point. He was gobbling. He'd shut up, and it's getting daylight. It's still kind of like, it's like, okay, yeah, you can see, but it's getting daylight. And I've got the gun on the knee, sitting there, waiting, and all of a sudden I hear just crunch, crunch, crunch slowly coming. I'm like, all right, I'm thinking maybe he hit the ground on the hillside, and he's just coming up. I'm going to come up at the field edge here. And about that time, I see something white, and I get down on the gun. And about that time, I'm like, wait a minute, something ain't right here. And I don't remember if I had safety off or not, but all of a sudden I look down my gun barrel, and I've got somebody's white face coming up at me. Wow. But that's how accidents happen. But at the end of the day, what happened was the person that's coming down my gun barrel was coming from the neighbors, crossed the fence, trespassing, going up, didn't care.
Sure.
Very well could have been one of those mornings that 3 seconds later somebody couldn't shot in the face. And I'd have had hard time living with that. But that's always, we all get out there and kind of that reminder of be sure of your target.
I had the same thing happen a couple years ago, and I was hunting midday. It was late morning, midday, and I just kind of went out to an open area where I could see, a lot of different places, and just doing some random calling and stuff. And all of a sudden I look 70 yards from me, and I could, hear something, and I'm watching. I'm like, what is going on over there? And all of a sudden, up from the timber, I see a turkey coming up. I thought, oh, shoot. So I'm getting my gun ready. Well, then all of a sudden I realize it's not just a turkey. It's a turkey decoy sticking out of the back of some dude's backpack, and he's coming up into my field.
That's scary.
And I thought, holy smokes, what is going on here? So I'm watching him to see what he's doing, and he was looking for me as being the hen calling. And so he kind of snuck around to the edge of this point, and he was kind of peeking around the corner, and I'm clearly watching him. He has no idea where I'm at. I'm behind him. And so then he decides to take back off and head back towards the timber. So I thought, well, I'm going to go confront him. Didn't grab my shotgun for some reason when I did this, and you'd think a cop would realize, hey, you got some guy that has a gun that is trespassing, bring your gun just in case. But I didn't. Luckily, it all ended well. But went and identified him, figured out who he was. Asked him what he was doing, and he said that he thought he had been on a gobbler and that it had come up to my property, and he was trying to close the distance on him. And I told him that he's full of it because I've been out there all morning and there had not been a gobbler gobbling because I would have been on him myself. And, got to, a story about how he thought somebody else was leasing my property. He knew that I owned it but thought somebody else had leased it because he always seen his truck in my property all the time, and that he thought that would be okay for him to hunt it then because somebody else was leasing it, which obviously was not the case. And did not end well, and I did pursue legal charges on him, and hated to be that guy, but man, this could have ended well or not ended well for a lot of people. And that's the thing. If you're going to be out there turkey hunting and you're going to be crossing fences, make sure you have permission. One, just because it's legal, don't be trespassing. But for two, if you don't know who's hunting this property that you're walking on, I don't think I want to be walking through there in full camo, stealthy, trying to find this noise. So let's not get ourselves shot. It's not worth it over a turkey. So
this has been a great podcast, Mike. We've heard the longest doe hunting story in the world.
There she was, standing broadside.
And the turkey safety's getting pretty lengthy too.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
it's good.
Turkey season's coming.
We're making up for lost time.
Yeah. So there's a reason I started a podcast. I like to talk.
That's
so
right.
if I didn't like to talk, I probably wouldn't have started a podcast.
So
there is no doubting that.
Yep. So
we all agree.
No, that's the number one thing. I enjoy talking about it, and looking forward to doing some more. Hopefully here in the future. The Deerland podcast is down, but it's not out. So we still got a lot of great ideas, and hopefully we can bring you some regular content coming up here in the short future. So, anybody else have anything else before we wrap things up here this evening?
Just can't wait for this spring and shed season coming up. We ought to do a little shed, maybe get together and do a shed rally.
I'm looking forward to a little bit of burning.
And we got
to be another topic. Stuff. Yeah, and that's the one thing I wanted to get into was, this whole government shutdown kind of put the screws into my plan of, for one, getting paid for habitat work I did last year that I've submitted my receipts for, but trying to get new stuff done. I mean, it's just been a pain in the neck. Luckily, I did hear from our district conservationist and touch base with me and let me know at least what was going on. Another ordeal there. Yeah. But, so that's going to be another thing on the mind is some habitat improvement, and Tyler is itching just to start going out and
get that drip torch out and just
throwing out the Boy
mix
Scout
that
juice.
gas and diesel together and let's light it up.
Yep.
Get a plan.
So that will be coming on the pipe. Hopefully the weather cooperates this year because it sure didn't last year. We never got it done. So, all right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up here on this episode. Thank you guys for listening. We hope that you're still enjoying what we're bringing you. We're going to try to keep bringing it to you on a regular basis here, if at all possible. So make sure you check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're all over the place. Deerland Podcast, thedeerlandpodcast.com. Give us some feedback. Let us know what you think, anything that you would like to see improved, or maybe something for us to talk about that we haven't, or maybe we've talked about it, but you want to hear us go a little bit deeper on a particular subject. We would love to hear that from you. So until next time, we'll see you then.